But the idea with these value streams is that they can turbocharge the improvements by doing big sweeping changes to the process. And then from there, you start to build your foundation, but you also start moving a lot faster. I would say that's probably my biggest takeaway in the last 2 months is having the engagement from your team to where you actually like go and look for their opinion instead of just trying to make a decision on your own. It's been phenomenal to see the ideas, because if you're missing out on that key aspect of lean, you're still dealing with a waste of unutilized talent.
Yes.
And that's a huge waste. And I know people say that, but you think like, okay, well, if they're not physically making something, they could be doing something else. That's how people think of unutilized talent. I think we need to look at unutilized talent a little differently. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Lean by Doing podcast. And today's guest is Kevin Rickers. He's my GM here at JCR Off-Road, Victory 4x4, Fat American Manufacturing, and Squatch Proof UTV.
That's right.
Kevin is been here for
over 10 years.
Over 10 years at this point. The funniest story I can tell you about Kevin is that, other than the fact that he owns pugs and likes pugs, that's kind of weird.
I have a pug. I don't like pugs.
The story that I can tell you the most is that the reason that Kevin and I have worked so well together for so long is because we both have been trained by my wife.
Yes, that's true.
Kevin worked for my wife before he came to work for me. So I think that has to be the real reason that it's worked.
It's been good. It's been helpful.
It hasn't hurt.
No, not at all.
I'm definitely easier to work for than my wife is.
Are you recording this? I don't know if this is.
It is recorded,
is it
but don't worry, she won't watch any or listen to any of it. All right, Kevin. Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, you're welcome.
And today is our first podcast.
It is.
And you're my first guest.
Oh, okay.
And we're doing it live.
I didn't know it was going to be this way. Is anybody watching? Can you tell?
It's not a live stream. We're just doing a recording.
Okay. I gotcha.
So anyways, we're going to try to get some little nuggets out of this and see. Okay. So Kevin, we have been doing lean for about 7 months, 6 months?
Six at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So 6 months officially.
January. It's January.
Yeah. And when you look back at these 6 months, what is when was like the biggest noticeable change that you felt like, man, this is really happening? Or
oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, I think for me there were two stages. So initially, just getting into some of the readings and getting into some of the personal growth stuff for me was kind of a big eye opener. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when we were kind of soft touching on all the different areas of lean. Yeah. And it gave me a chance to kind of look at some of my, I guess you'd say my deficiencies, areas that I could grow that have always been there. But that for me was kind of my first step in saying, okay, I can see some benefits here and I can see where it's going to help me personally and also us as a business. And then I'd say, go ahead. You're going to ask me a question.
No, you're good.
I'd say more recently, probably in the past few weeks, as we've been starting to get into value streams.
Yeah,
that for me has been.
That's what I figured you were going to say.
Yeah. That was a
value stream mapping is a really interesting thing. Mm-hmm. It is extremely hard to understand without a guide.
Yeah.
I became your guide.
Absolutely.
I did a lot of reading and a lot of YouTube videos trying to understand it, and it ended up being way easier than I thought it would be. Everyone talking about it seemed like it was going to be really difficult. It actually turned out to not actually be all that difficult.
No. I think the big benefit for me and for other people was the visual of putting everything, we've worked in our roles, we've worked in this building, we've worked through the lean process so far, but then actually putting it through a visual flow of product through different departments, for me was eye-opening. And I think for a lot of other people, when they walked through different departments that they weren't in before and had a chance to see how a product actually moved from one person to another, one machine to another, you could see the light bulbs go off like, wait a minute, why is this here? Or why do we do that? And I think that was a big deal for a lot of people, including myself.
I think that with value stream mapping, the thing that changed the most was taking like key members of our team and our leadership team and actually moving them into a different role completely and basically saying, hey, this product lineup, you're now in charge of it from door to door. Yeah. However, the clarity it seems to give people is pretty wild.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. It's just been, like I was saying, to watch them just kind of see things from a different perspective or be forced to look outside of their comfort zone has been nice. And you can kind of see light bulbs going off in their heads and saying, okay, I get it. And then also getting a chance to take somebody and that has strengths that we maybe weren't utilizing before, and put them into a role where we can see them kind of grow.
So when you talk about value stream mapping, it's like literally sticky notes on a post-it board. So I went to the Dollar General and I bought a couple of post-it boards and I taped them up on the wall. And then I just used sticky notes and we went like stage by stage, like starts, with steel ordering, the stuff coming in from external suppliers. And that was eye-opening. Even just the way that we order was crazy.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, the fact that we had 4 people involved in ordering steel. And when I say we had 4 people involved, so our production planner, our production manager, our purchasing person, and then they were negotiating every single day with a shop.
Yeah.
So they were sometimes there was another person involved. They might have been shopping that with 2 or 3 different steel companies. So that one was crazy.
Yeah.
And then also we didn't have any of that material on Kanban.
True.
So that was why it required so much. So one of the first things we decided to do with the value stream projects was to start actually working on getting those things on Kanban so that the trigger is to pull the item when it needs to be purchased. They don't have to do it manually.
Yes. Which is great.
Yes, absolutely. Anything on Kanban is smoothed out, especially on like supplies.
Yeah.
The next thing from there, we just basically put up a sticky note that basically said laser cutter. And then from there to surfacing department, and then another sticky note to brake press. And then from there it went to powder coat, right?
Yes. Depending on which,
non-welded products went to powder coat. Some of our welding products would then go to fab or robot. So the value streams that we're doing, the 3 value streams we're doing are welded products, non-welded products, and then roof racks. And the reason we picked those are kind of like our 3 main ones. They all everything kind of follows the same flow for the most part, with the exception that sometimes they share monuments.
True.
And when I say monument, I mean like powder coating is a monument. Every single value stream goes through it.
Yeah.
The laser cutter.
Correct.
Most of the products, if not all the products, go through the laser cutter as well. So that has to be one of those monuments. So you're sharing, the value streams are flowing into these monuments. Now, in the perfect world, you would have 2 laser cutters or 3 laser cutters or however many you need, right? And a piece of equipment in every value stream for every piece it needs.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we've had to do is say, all right, if this value stream uses this piece of equipment more than the others, then the other ones need to become a customer of that value stream.
Yes.
Can you kind of explain an example on how we basically created a grocery store from a department?
So I think there's 2. I mean, the first grocery store that we actually saw came in the fab department. That was the first one that we introduced, and that came basically for Monty over in machining,
right,
or for the CNC. And then that fuels their day-to-day. So that grocery store, we have dunnage bins, and then the fab guys just pull out of there as they're building stuff and using stuff, and then we Kanban that back to CNC to then continuously refill, so those guys always have things to grab and don't run out.
Right.
And I think that was our first. I don't know if we meant to do that, but it made sense because of the dunnage bin, so we just did it that way. And now, we're going to incorporate that into the warehouse, which it'll work also for the roof rack value stream.
Yep. So in the idea of having a grocery store, for us, it's like the saw. So we have a bandsaw that cuts our material, and it's only primarily feeding the CNC department. So with that, they then get that piece of equipment. And then when fabrication needs a couple of things on the saw, they need to become a customer of that department, and then they need to put it on Kanban. And then as they're pulling, it returns the Kanban to the saw department to create more.
Sure.
And that's the best way to do that. Another example of this would be the tube bender and the tube cutter.
Yeah.
So we have a tube bender and a tube cutter, and it only facilitates the welded value stream. And right now we have it sitting like in its home, like a whole different department.
Up against the wall, yeah.
Yeah, it's like as they say, like you group. For some reason, in America we love to just group equipment by equipment. So it's like all the drill presses are together. It makes them happy little drill presses.
Yeah.
And then all of the brake presses are together and one happy little brake press.
Or that they're long, right? The Dragon's long, so it makes sense to put it up against a long wall just to kind of keep it out of the way.
Right. So when we look at that tube bending thing, when we move into a new facility, we're actually going to move it into fab, and then we're going to one-piece flow it. We're not even going to grocery store those tubes. They're just going to come and make it as needed for that order that's coming into fabrication. I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yep.
And then from there, as these products flow, you basically create a team to champion them.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, just like summarize one of the teams or how we structured one of the teams.
So the one we did most recently is roof racks, but I think that one is it's smaller. It's a monster.
And it's a mess.
It's the one that we've allowed to be a mess because we knew that it would take the most amount of work.
Right.
as we fell into getting it done.
Right.
But we basically took a few individuals from different departments. So we've got a Monty who's from our CNC department. We have Chris that came from our customer service department. And then we've got Colin, who's one of our engineers, right? So Colin's like the support engineer for everything that needs to be done in line with changes that we have to make or things that have to be designed or moved. And then Monty is a support. And then Chris basically is a value stream manager that oversees all day long anything that can benefit improvements in his value stream.
So one of the things that is super unique about value streams is the ability to actually put team members that aren't from that. Maybe they service part of the value stream. Sure. For example, Monty works in our CNC department, and that whole entire setup is on a grocery store. So the products are just recirculating to him, and he's making them as needed. However, pulling him out and putting him in a value stream, now you have his opinion on, are there areas that he can make, suggestions for improvements?
Yes.
The top level of the value stream goes down to having a value stream manager, and then you need to have an engineer for each value stream, ideally, right? Maybe you're not big enough to do that, but ideally you have a manager, then you have an engineer, and then from there you create team members. Yeah. A couple of the teams, we have a few more team members than just one.
Yes.
And those, which one is Joel on?
So Joel is on the non-welded value stream.
So Joel actually works as customer service. Mm-hmm. And Joel is now a part of a value stream, and every single day they walk the Gemba and look at their value stream. They look at their turnback boards, look for errors, issues, problems, and then kind of do root cause on those.
Yeah, which is nice.
But their entire job now is to service and improve the value stream.
Yes.
It sounds too good to be true.
Maybe.
You have an engineer that can make things happen. Mm-hmm. You have some of our best talent running these value streams.
Yes.
And then you're teaching people who aren't a part of a normal shop related job what it's like to actually work on the shop floor and help with improvements and help with SOPs or help with Kanban, whatever it may be for that value stream.
Yes.
It's a really unique setup.
Yeah, I think it's great. Just to kind of, like we saw in our initial meetings when you'd walk through for the first time with everybody and just kind of pretend like you were a part working through that value stream. Everybody came back to the conference room and sat down and said, had questions, right? Why did that happen? I can't believe this happened. Are you serious that we do it that way? And it was interesting just to kind of hear from a different perspective that's never involved. It's sometimes, I guess, they have such just childish eyes, right? They're just not exposed to it, and it allows them to be unfiltered, I guess you would say.
It's definitely one of those things that I wish I would have focused on sooner.
Maybe.
But I don't know that we were ready for it.
No.
However, the clarity that it has created is, oh my gosh, it's like off the chart.
I wouldn't have been ready if we would have done it in the first month. I think it would have been overwhelming.
Yeah. And this also gets down to the root of taking away job titles from people that they're accustomed to. For example, Chris, he was our tech support manager or customer service manager.
Correct.
And, and with Lean, tech support is a defect fixing department. Mm-hmm. You may need it, but we certainly need it a lot less now that we're improving our quality every day. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that.
We have.
So to be able to take Chris, who has a ton of experience and knowledge, and apply him somewhere completely different is awesome.
Yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see how these value streams come together. And one of the things I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about was the Kaizen bursts that we identified on the value streams.
Yes.
So the first thing we did was we actually mapped the current value stream. And then after we had the current value stream mapped, after walking the floor, we identified the areas that needed improvements. And when we did that, it showed, 7, 8, 9 different Kaizen events that needed to happen.
And roof racks. Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, I think it was welded one was like 6 or 7. The non-welded was like 4.
Yeah, that was the least.
And then the roof racks were, it was like 9. 9 bursts.
was.
Now, some of these Kaizen events actually overlap value streams.
They do a lot.
So like the steel ordering part, that overlaps
everybody.
all of them. So by having a team that fixes it, it helps all of the value streams.
Yeah.
And
Packaging,
then
there's a lot.
yeah. So that's, and then you have the non-welded team that's focusing on the Kaizen project that we're working on for the shipping department.
Yep.
So they're fixing something for other value streams as well. So that's kind of cool to see. Essentially, we have 11 members of these 3 value streams. And these 11 guys can now go and do Kaizen events if they needed. They can make sweeping changes to the process.
And they also affect each other downstream, like without really, they know, but it's just one of those things that they have to get used to.
Right.
But it's kind of cool to see them work together, right? You're taking 11 guys that may not have worked side by side all day long and put them in a position where they have to communicate. They have to be looking together as a team, and it's nice to kind of see them in that position.
And one thing that I want to touch on, by taking our design engineers and putting them into these value streams, definitely gives them a whole different perspective of what it looks like to operate as an engineer here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really cool to see some of the ownership that they've created in just a few days for their value streams.
Yes.
The laser focus that you get from a value stream map, that's freaking crazy.
Yeah, it's been nice to see them run with it
Right.
very, very quickly right out of the gate.
And, we've never done anything like this before in our lives.
No.
We don't. Yeah, I mean, we don't have a clue.
I don't come from manufacturing.
From
nonprofit.
from several different books and podcasts and videos, I've managed to piece together kind of an idea, and I think we did a really good job making our own version of a value stream map. Like in the Word document with you, like we captured all the Kaizen events, we captured the.
I think it worked out.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was nice. Still trying to perfect everything step by step, but it's nice to have kind of a template to work off of in the future.
So when we took the guys out on the shop floor, we actually walked them through the value stream. So we'll say, like, okay, this is where the material comes in. Here's the laser cutter. This is where the parts are laser cut. And for some of them, they really weren't aware of the process.
Absolutely.
And so then they were able to go in and actually write down things like, this is weird. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And then when we came back to the conference room, we would go person by person and ask them for their takeaways. And their takeaways are what created the Kaizen bursts on the map.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that they had some really good feedback that maybe we would have missed.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I think we saw that a lot in the warehouse. That was where it was very evident.
Yes.
We had a projected layout that we thought was going to work. And then through, walking through and talking and asking questions, realized, hey, wait a minute, this might not be the best way to do it.
I would say that's probably my biggest takeaway in the last 2 months is having the engagement from your team to where you actually go and look for their opinion instead of just trying to make a decision on your own. It's been phenomenal to see the ideas. And I know that people in Lean, they're like, yeah, I take my people's opinion. I don't know that you do on the level that you should.
I would agree.
And
I think there's they listen. I don't know if they necessarily hear. And then do they ever put any of that advice into practice?
Because if you're missing out on that key aspect of Lean, you're still dealing with a waste of unutilized talent.
Yes.
And that's a huge waste. I know people say that, but you think okay, well, if they're not physically making something, they could be doing something else. That's how people think of unutilized talent. I think we need to look at unutilized talent a little differently. It's more in line with not tapping into the genius
Absolutely.
that they have.
Yeah.
Ben Flick in that shipping Kaizen was a great example.
That was a great example.
I mean, his ideas were completely different than anything that you or I came up with.
Yeah.
And we work in the shipping department pretty regularly, so we have an idea how that flow works.
Yeah.
But we
More
didn't
in there than anywhere else.
Yeah, we didn't really expect I didn't expect it to come out differently than what I had drawn up, to be honest with you.
No, I didn't think so. I mean, what you drew up already was drastically different. And I thought, well, how much more different could it be from that?
Yeah.
And then when we walked through and it was great just to get that input and say, and it was great to see it get considered, right? To be able to say, you know what, maybe my idea is not the best way to do it, and we should try this. And that was actually pretty cool to watch them. And I could tell by the look in their eyes that they felt heard and appreciated, which was great to kind of see that.
So Kevin, let's step back a little bit. And we talked about value streams.
Oh, yeah.
How do we help people out there do what we just did? Like, let's walk them through the steps of establishing a value stream and then also creating what we did, the map and everything.
Yeah.
So I can lead with that. Step one for determining what your value streams are. What I did is I went out and I actually tried to figure out if you had to like proportion your product lineup into groups. Some of those groups obviously would flow through different areas. It could be one particular product. If you made like a bazillion of one thing, it should be its own value stream. If you can try to like split your revenue into maybe a couple, 2 or 3, but you definitely don't want to go more than 2 or 3 value streams.
Yeah, I think 3 worked out really well for us, especially because it's so broad with the welded, non-welded, and then, like we said, roof racks are so unique. It was good.
And then we touched on the team structure.
I was just thinking about that.
You have a value stream manager.
Yes.
And you have an engineer.
Yep.
And then you have
for sure.
And then you have team members. And depending on the size of the team,
I was going to say that. Yeah.
will determine the team members.
Exactly.
And one of the things that we decided to do with these value stream team members is actually look at rotating them.
We did.
So that way it's like a learning opportunity for people to come onto these value streams.
Yes.
And so maybe it's like a 6-month period and then we rotate new people in.
For the member.
Yeah,
the
for the
manager would
members.
stay.
Yeah, managers and engineers stay. They become owners of those value streams. But the team members that are assisting, the cross-functional people, they can come in and out.
Yes.
All right, so the day of the value stream mapping came. We set aside 2 days the first day.
We did.
Which
I think was good.
Yeah, we got through a lot of stuff.
We did.
So we started Kevin and I identified who we wanted to be the value stream manager for welded products.
Yes.
Which engineer we wanted, and then team members. And the team members was loose. We actually added somebody.
We did.
Late.
We moved that one around.
So Joel's in customer service and Kevin Bradshaw's in marketing. And right now, Kevin Bradshaw's helping because one of the goals is to onboard more robotic products, more welded robotic products. So actually, Kevin Bradshaw's running the welding robot.
Yeah, which is neat.
To allow Lee to then onboard more product onto the welding robot. Yeah, so the idea is that these team members can actually go out on the shop floor and help. So if they come across a problem in a gimbal walk and they're like, oh, crap, we really need to address this. Well, there's a chance that Joel, who's in a customer service role, he may not be available to do customer service that day because he may need to actually work on the value stream or the value stream. And that's the design.
It is.
For it to work like that.
Which is fine.
I think it's good.
It's good. But like I said, if he's busy that day and then another person's on the value stream and they get busy that day, then their original department is neglected, and we didn't want to do that.
Yeah, and that was why we had to do some maneuvering so that we didn't starve, customer service or sales.
That was amazing,
but we started with a lot of people in these value streams that weren't part of the value-added work on the shop floor.
Yeah, not physically in those departments.
So that's a very different way to go about it as well, because we have a surplus of people that do marketing and customer service and purchasing and sales and engineering, and we put them on the shop floor and said, go get it.
Which I would do every time.
Yeah, I think so.
I would.
Yeah.
Just for that unfiltered perspective of not being in there and just making assumptions based on what they do day to day. I mean, they saw it from a different perspective, which was good.
So next we went out onto the floor and we walked them through like we said, we'd walk through the value stream. They made notes. We came back. We asked them to give us feedback from what they saw. And then we mapped it.
Yep.
And
current state.
Yeah, we just current state. That's what we called it, right? Current state?
Current state.
Yeah, current state. And then we put our Kaizen bursts on it. And then we developed a future state map. So if you don't mind, kind of explain what a future state map kind of looked like for us.
Well, the future state I think all the departments is pretty much the same. Pretty much the future state started by streamlining purchasing. That was kind of the number one place to make sure that we could get everything negotiated with our vendors so that we could order on a regular basis, so we could rely on. And then from there also are working on putting plans in place so that the value stream managers can order product right from their value stream. So a lot less of working with purchasing, waiting for this to get done and waiting for that to get done, more of a scan and order type of thing. which I think was a big step for us that affects everybody.
And one thing is trying to remove ERP or MRP from sending jobs to every individual department. We wanted to create triggers along the way to make those products,
Which is good.
So we have one job that gets released in the ERP system, and as it's coming through, we've created triggers to pull the accessories or components to build that product.
Yeah.
We did a pretty good job setting ourselves up with the CNC department on that dunnage bin that you talked about, on that recycling dunnage bin, because if that would have been a project we had to do.
Oh yeah.
So it was nice to have that done.
It's nice, and it's a good it's a good resource and a reference for people that haven't seen it before. They can see it in place in that department, and they're like, oh, okay, that's what that's there for.
Yeah. And I think that the future state also reflects like where we want to be in like a year.
Yes.
So it's actually, shifting where you're actually putting equipment or where and how the work is flowing. And then you start to identify those things, and then your goals line up to try to get to that future state.
Yeah, as I say, our 1 year goals and 3 year goals help to shape a lot of what we were doing with Kaizen projects and where we were going.
Yeah. And the one thing, which I can touch on later, I get a lot of questions about Kaizen versus 2-second lean. And I think that's like a whole nother animal to unpack. But the idea with these value streams is that they can turbocharge the improvements by doing big sweeping changes to the process. And then from there, you start to build your foundation, but you also start moving a lot faster.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think before, and you were going to touch on it, but I'll try not to too much, but before we try to do too much individually, right? And we really sat down and said, well, that should be a Kaizen event, and that should be a Kaizen event. So more of an all hands on deck, get done faster versus chugging away at it during your 30-minute times in the morning.
So Kevin, what are some of your goals going forward for these value streams? What would you like to see happen in the next, I don't know, let's just say in the next year and a half, what would you like to see happen in those value streams?
Well, that's a tough question to answer here. I mean, for me, I would like those value streams to dictate what we do on a daily basis, and a lot of planning based on that, to formulate our decision making based on those value streams and what we identify and the changes that we've made and the success that should come from those changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd really like to see our guys develop. So the team members that are on the team, I would like to see them grow from this experience and really come to understand how we make our product, why we make our product, and who we serve.
True.
I also think that the clarity that comes from being able to break these value streams down and then giving them goals, it happened pretty much in the first day where they had a good idea come up.
Yes.
But it didn't align with their plans, right? So they looked at their goals and they said that doesn't align, so they shelved it. We're not doing it.
Yeah, which is nice.
If it's a good enough idea, as Tom Hughes says, it'll come back around.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really like mature for them to be on the shop floor and saying, nope, I'm not going to go after this shiny object. We're going to stay the course and work on our goals.
It's easy, because it's easy to get distracted. Before we would table a bunch of stuff and they'd be kind of in the background on a list of maybes, a list of maybe to do, and it would just be looming. And then after a while, you'd feel guilt or pressure that you never got back to it. And it's nice to just be able to laser focus on, nope, that doesn't fit on our plan right now. So it's going to have to wait.
One of the things that we noticed on our Gimbal walk were how many times we left decision-making to be made on the floor, and we didn't have a really good way for them to make the decisions. Yeah. And that's great. That's crazy. Yeah,
it's hard.
Because you want to be able to allow your floor to make decisions, but you want to give them the information so they're not spending a bunch of time spinning. Instead, they're able to just move on.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but it's been a fun process. It's been a wild ride.
It has.
We get a lot of notoriety for how hard we move. I think that is a testament to who we are more so than what we're doing.
I would agree.
We're always just getting into it.
Yeah, it's a commitment too.
Right.
It's nice. We've built a culture before this with a good amount of people. So to then step into something like this, wasn't as hard. You had a lot of people that were craving more knowledge. They were craving something
Yes,
to
for sure.
change their life, either personally or professionally. And all the resources that come from going through the 2-second lean process have been great for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, our bathrooms look freaking awesome.
They do.
And that's something that historically drove me crazy.
Yeah, all of us.
I mean, it's so frustrating because even the cleaning company did a terrible job. So it's nice that that's something that we can just handle on our own.
It is.
And I can remember even, I don't know, 8 or 9 months ago when we were getting ready to build a new building, and I was telling you that I wanted to get to where we were doing all the cleaning, and my leadership team told me I was crazy.
Yeah.
But look at us now.
I was like, I think people quit over it. That was my thought.
Yeah. No one's quit over
no,
it yet.
Nobody's quit over it.
I mean, and it works.
It does.
It's giving people that personal accountability for things.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
knowing that they do have to go a little bit above and beyond to have something that's considered world class.
Yes.
And I throw that word around a lot, world class, right? But
Okay.
we know where we want to go.
Yes.
You
I
know,
would agree.
We know where we want to be.
If we don't talk about it, you got to have those goals.
Right.
You got to have that stretch. You got to have that vision. Right? We talk about that. And if you don't have it, then people don't always know why they come to work every day.
Yeah. So, Kevin, before I end this podcast, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you some real hard questions.
Okay.
So, from me, is there anything that I could do better for you as my general manager?
Oh man.
And
That
I
is a
want it.
tough one.
Give me the hard truth.
That's a tough one. You asked me this question once before, and I struggled to give you some answers.
You could probably go back to those same things again.
I could. One of the things that I talked about before is just the openness to be able to take criticism from both sides. Like for me to be comfortable to tell you sometimes that I don't necessarily agree with the path that you want to take,
Right.
and know that it's for the best and it's understood, right? It's just one of those things that's not necessarily hurting your feelings, but you know that it's just coming from my heart with the wanting to get better, right? The company wanting to grow and get better.
Yeah.
And I will only be able to get that from you if I'm willing to give that
Right.
to you,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
if I can't do that, then that's going to be hard. So I think that for me is a big help. One of the things that I've seen for a change that has been helpful for me is the understanding that we do things differently, right? We
Yes.
move differently, we learn things differently, and to continue to embrace that with everybody, which I've seen from you, which is good, but to continue to do that and understand that sometimes people are going to learn different ways, and they may not necessarily catch on as fast as you do, but to have the patience to know that we'll come around once we get a chance to learn it our way.
Yeah, that's a crazy thought, is that my patience level.
Yes.
Historically, I don't know that I've been the most patient person, even though maybe I think that maybe I thought I was. I've definitely been way more patient now, as I realize that people's development is slower. And that's okay.
Yes.
And we have a lot of guys here that are pushing for those guys to move on faster, and it's just not their time,
Yeah.
right?
And I think you've done a good job of just taking a deep breath and saying that, just saying, hey, it's okay. Maybe it's not their time. At times we want it to be faster, and I can tell at times you would like it to go faster.
Absolutely.
And I would too in some situations. And we need to sometimes all be able to check each other and say, well, maybe it's not his time, or maybe we need to teach him another way. We talked about that last week, right? We talked about when we addressed a problem in the morning meeting in production, when we actually dove into it further and said, well, maybe it's a lack of training, or maybe it's a lack of a process. Whereas before we probably would get frustrated and just jump in and take care of it ourselves. Instead, we kind of took a step back and said, well, what could we do differently to make this better, which I thought was awesome and appreciated.
So I just want to give everybody out there a little insight. Kevin came over here and didn't even know that he was going to be on a podcast right now. And I was like, hey, why don't you take your coat off? We're doing some dry runs.
Yeah.
So we just kind of did it live.
Yeah.
We've been playing around with this all day today, trying to get the audio working, try to get the cameras working. We still only have 2 camera shots, so I can go to the main shot like this, or I can come to mine. Yeah. Our 3rd camera is in the mail. It's Martin Luther King Day, so I'm not going to deliver it today. But next up, we'd have 3 cameras, so I'd be able to go right to Kevin in that spot.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So less pressure on me today.
Yeah,
so.
but from a production standpoint, I would love to have it there.
Yeah. I can just look at you, and it's easier.
But I do want to tell you one thing, Kevin. Like, I got your back every single day, all the time. Yeah. Like, when I say like we're a family here, like I genuinely mean we're a family here.
I agree.
Right.
I appreciate that.
I think that I love you guys as much as I love anyone in my family, and like today in the morning meeting, Cole asked me to help with the presentation for Morgan for that golden banana.
yeah.
And I told him straight up, I was like, it's going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
And it was,
Yeah.
and I was,
Had to do a few takes, right?
it was one
Collect
take.
yourself.
It was one take.
Yeah.
And I definitely caught myself tearing up. It was hard. And even this morning in the meeting, I was like nervous to go with it. And I don't know why, because people have seen me vulnerable, but it was like this next level of.
It's a different level.
I mean, in the
It's a
morning
different
meeting
volume.
on the
Yeah.
55-inch TV screen, choking up.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, what makes the biggest impact to these people? And I just want you guys to know that like you genuinely have my heart. And when I ask for you guys to give me your hearts and your hands and your minds, just know that I'm also doing the same.
Oh, I know. Well, thank you.
And
Yeah, I mean, I've been here for a while too, so it's been a long journey, and I've always been here. I've always had your back, and it's been always knowing that I feel like I own this place the same as you guys. You're like, I give 100% of myself to the company, and similar to what you were saying, I consider everybody here some of my dearest friends.
And as hard as lean has been, it's still so much better than it's ever been here.
Yes.
I mean, the culture it's awesome.
Yes.
It's exceptional.
And it's sometimes hard to believe.
Yeah.
Because we spent so many years not doing it. Right now, I've over 10 years I've been here, and I'd say about 9.5 of it we've been banging our heads against the wall and it's just been, you kind of look for something that might be able to unlock our actual potential that we know is inside us, and this is definitely one of those things to do that.
I think it helps because our leadership as a whole, we're all so transparent.
Yeah.
And we understand the importance of helping people grow and come up with us. And it's just not me, right? There's 6, 7, 8 of us in the building that are every day pushing harder and harder and harder.
Absolutely.
And that's why we've gotten so far so quickly. But I look forward to what's next.
I agree. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a busy year, but a lot of fun.
Yeah. So.